Welcome to Week 5 of the Mountain Valley News Pigskin Preview. I'm Monk Blevins.
And I'm Will Jacobs.
And we're going to be with you for the next hour talking a little high school football, talking about the games last week, man. First of all, man, it's hard to believe we are already in Week 5.
I know.
Half the season's gone.
Oh, yeah. This season has flown by, and it doesn't even seem like it even started.
Oh, man, I know. It seems like we were just talking about the first games yesterday. So, but, man, with some great football games last week, and then this week we got some –
and two more.
A couple of undefeated teams playing each other. And so, but let's talk a little bit about last week and those games. First one I've got here, we talk about the Plainview Bears, beat Geraldine by a score of 37-14. Bailey Dukes had another great night. He was 14 of 22 for 187 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he also rushed for 41 yards and a score on the ground. Mm-hmm. David White had 58 yards on 16 carries for Geraldine. But, this game, started out, looked like it was going to be a very close football game. What was your thoughts on this game?
Well, like you said, it started out close, but it seemed like Plainview just found a way to move the ball and kept moving it throughout the game, whether it be on the pass or run game. And Bailey Dukes would pick Geraldine apart, and then they'd turn around and hand it right back to Clay Cooper, and then he'd rush for a good 6 or 7 yards. And then when Geraldine would get the ball back, they just seemed to struggle to move the ball. Yeah, very balanced attack for Plainview, and that's one of the things so hard to be able to defense those when you're so balanced. And so it was just a great game for the Plainview Bears, and they're sitting at 5-0 for the first time since 2003, and had the opportunity to go over last week and be at their pep rally, and had a special guest there. Bum Pickens showed up for the pep rally, and I think that got the kids fired up. So it's just a great week of football, man. And this week they've got a huge football game. Oh, absolutely. They travel to Fife this week, and that's really going to put everything that they've played for up against the wall.
Oh, absolutely. Fife's, of course, they're sitting at 4-0, and we'll talk about them in just a second. But, this Plainview-Geraldine game, again, is a great night for Plainview. And not taking anything away from Geraldine, I think, they started out, looked really good. Thomas Willoughby and, of course, David White, both very talented athletes. And Plainview just played good.
Absolutely.
I mean, home game, and seemed like once they got on them a couple of touchdowns, Geraldine just, in the first half, couldn't seem get anything going. Mm-hmm. But now in the second half, Geraldine actually dominated that game. They held the ball just about the whole second half.
Their time of possession was actually a whole lot longer than most people thought it was during that second half, because they just moved the ball well on the ground, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah. But a great, big game for Geraldine this week. They'll be traveling over to DAR, or actually they'll be playing at home against DAR, and that's homecoming for Geraldine this week. So big game for them, and again, the Plainview game, a big game with Fife, but we'll talk a little bit about that game here in just a minute. The next game we want to talk about is the Sylvania Rams, and, Sylvania, by the way, is the Mountain Valley News Team of the Week, and they defeated North Sand Mountain 40-20. Chris Shavers had another great football game. He had 212 yards on 21 carries and a touchdown. Blake Spears, who plays quarterback, had 134 yards passing and a touchdown. And then right on the other side, North Sand Mountain, Landon Green had a phenomenal night passing. He was 20 of 31 for 252 yards on the night. And, of course, his best receiver, Austin Hill, had 116 yards on 9 catches. So, this game was a little surprising in the first half. 13-13 at halftime, and I think we were all a little bit surprised with that score.
Well, it seemed like Sylvania, they struggled just a little bit in the first half, but then coming out of halftime, whatever Coach Putnam told them to do, that's what they went out and did. They executed it very well. I mean, they moved the ball down the field very well. I got a chance to see some of the stats this week and some of their times of possessions, and it seemed like Sylvania would go down, score, force a turnover, go down, score, and then force a 3 and out, and then go down, not get a score on that drive. But I mean, they would constantly move the ball the second half.
Absolutely, yeah. Sylvania's got a big game this week. That's the other game of the undefeateds. Crossville actually will travel up to Sylvania, and that's going to be another super football game on Friday night. And it's a shame they're both on Friday night, by the way. But, this Sylvania team, we talked a lot about them. Playing well. I know Chris Shavers is a little banged up. Not sure his status for this week. I'm sure he'll play, but he may not be 100% in that game. So that could be that could hurt him going into that game. We'll see how that shakes out. But this Sylvania team, they're rolling right along. 4-0 on the season, and setting up. Of course, the Crossville game and the Plainview 5 game really don't mean a whole lot. Those are non-region games. But, this Plainview and Sylvania is setting up for a big game on October the 20th.
Oh, absolutely. Whoever wins that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if Plainview does win that game, they'll be tied for first in the region, and they'll have to flip for it.
Yeah, again, that's going to be a super football game. So we'll see how that shakes out. Next game we talk about, and man, what about the Crossville Lions? Coach Holcomb has done such a fantastic job,
absolutely.
And they traveled down to Douglas this last week, and they beat Douglas 61-14. And I know, Douglas is down a little bit this year, but anytime you can put 61 points up on anybody, you're having a pretty good night.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was 49-0 going into halftime, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
so
exactly right.
Coach Holcomb got a lot of those younger guys in the second half and got them some experience.
Yeah. Blanton Jones had 133 total yards and scored 3 touchdowns on the night. Jay Luther, had 96 yards rushing on the night. So, this team is playing well. They've got some kids that can get the job done.
Oh, absolutely.
And, again, big game with Sylvania this week. Probably their first real test, I would think. Some of the teams that they've played have been a little bit down this year. Of course, they played Collinsville at the beginning of the season. Collinsville's not a bad football team by any means. And so, but I think this will be a good test to see where Crossville is at this point.
I agree with you.
So I'm looking forward to that game, and that's going to be a huge football game. And I can't say enough about this Crossville Line team and what they've done in the last year and a half.
Oh, absolutely, especially them being 4-0 for the first time in.
Oh man, I don't know.
2003 or something.
Yeah, been a long time. So, congratulations to the Crossville Lions on the season that they've had. And next game we talk about the Valley Head Tigers. They traveled down to Spring Garden, and man, I tell you what, Spring Garden put a whipping on them. It was 42-6.
Wow.
Valley Head scores late in that game. I think, did I say Sylvania?
No,
I don't know.
You said
Okay,
Spring Garden.
I'm sorry. I still had Sylvania on my mind a little bit, but Valley Head scored late in that football game, and to make it 42-6. So Roger Kirby's still playing well for Valley Head, but they're just a struggling football team right now, and traveling down to Spring Garden, who is not a bad football team.
No, not at all. They've won a couple of close games, and then Spring Garden's lost a couple of close games too.
Yeah,
and so, but. I mean, like you said, Valley Head's kind of struggling this year, and so I think Spring Garden really took advantage of that.
Oh, absolutely. Valley Head has a open this week, and hopefully they can, work on some fundamentals and some different things, and maybe, get things going after the open next week. So, the next game we talk about, the Fife Red Devils, they traveled up to Ider, and man, what a whipping they put on the Ider Hornets. And when we talk about this, Ider is not a bad football team by any means. Got some very good talent. Got 13 seniors on that. 15 seniors. I'm sorry. Somebody sent me a text over the weekend and said Ider has 15 seniors, and I think I've been saying 13 seniors, but they have 15 seniors on that team. So they're a senior loaded football team, and again, Jacob Higdon is a phenomenal player for them.
Absolutely, him and I believe it's Logan Townsend. I know there's two, but I know both the Townsend twins are on that team, but I believe it's Logan that's been stepping up and carrying the ball for them a whole lot this year. And like we said, Ider's not a bad football team. They lost a close game to a decent Sandrock team. I believe it was 20-14.
Oh, absolutely.
Lost that one, and they were in that game the whole way going into the fourth quarter, but Sandrock just pulled ahead. But, it's Fife. I mean, that's really all you can say.
You know, talking about five, Peyton Anderson, who is actually the Mountain Valley News Player of the Week. He rushed for 113 yards, but he had 5 touchdowns on the night. So congratulations to Peyton Anderson, and we'll hopefully get him a plaque down there sometime this week. Seth Benefield passed for 73 yards on the night, and, you know, I know the Rowell boy had a touchdown, and so, you know, they were spreading the ball around, and, you know, and I'm telling you, man, what a matchup this is going to be coming up this week between Fife and Plainview. You know, again, Jacob Higdon had 46 yards rushing. He was the leading rusher for Hyder on the night, but, you know, this Sylvania team is clicking on all cylinders right now, and, you know, big game. Probably the biggest Plainview Fife game that has been around here in a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Both teams are well talented, and both of them have quite a many seniors. I know Plainview has 23, I believe.
I believe that's correct.
I'm not sure. I think Fife has 18, I think something like that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they've got this, having all these seniors on both sides of the field, that's really going to help play into a big factor of this game, because both of them have, all these seniors have so much experience playing the other one. So
oh, absolutely, and you know the thing that this Fife team, you know, they're gonna run it down your throat, and they're gonna pound you to death. And so you know, Plainview's defense will have to be, and we'll talk some more about that as we get further in. But that's gonna be a super football game, and again, Fife is just you know, they're right back where they have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and so we'll see how that shakes out as we go. You know, the next game we want to talk about, man, and what a heartbreaking loss for the Section Lions. They traveled down to Westbrook, you know, had the lead 21-7 in that game at halftime. And I think myself, and I'm pretty sure you felt pretty good about Section winning that game. And everybody that was around here thought, you know, Section was going to win that football game. But, you know, Westbrook comes out the second half and dominates that football game and scores 21 points to defeat Section 28-21. Just it has to be a heartbreaking loss for the Section Lions.
I'm sure that that bus ride back for Section, I'm sure that was a quiet bus ride because of that. I mean, just games like that, I know from my own personal experience where you're up going into halftime, then you come out and then it kind of things not necessarily fall apart, but they don't really go how you expect them to. That can, and especially it being on the road, that can devastate you.
Oh yeah. Playing on the road, I think, really did hurt them. You know, they had some turnovers and some things they did in the first game. You know, where they turned the ball over, penalties and things that just really hurt them going down. But you know, Tanner Baker had another great night. He rushed for 89 yards on 14 carries. Lane Carter had 61 yards on 15 carries. Ryan Gray was 7 of 10 for 100 yards, and Caden Hicks had 4 catches for 45 yards for Section. So, you know, they're spreading the ball around, and you know, offensively, they seem like they're playing well. Defensively, they had been playing well, and you know, I know Westbrook, you know, is a very talented football team.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they were sitting at 0-4, I think, on the season, but, you know, they had played some tough football games, and, you know, they had lost to Fife and a couple other teams that are very good football teams. So, not a bad football team to lose to, but I know the Section Lions were a little disheartened over that, and, you know, they have an open this week, and, you know, that'll give them an opportunity to work on some things, and then they'll be traveling up to Ider next week in a big game there, a big region game. You know, you felt pretty good if Section wins that football game Friday night. You know, you feel real good about them getting a playoff berth.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, it's going to be a little tougher now for them, but you know, I think Section Ider is a good matchup next week.
I do too. They've got this whole week to get that tough loss out of their heads and just get back focused on Ider, because that is a big region game, and that could determine who goes to the
Absolutely.
playoffs.
And, you know, give Section some time to, you know, and again, we harped on this all year, but, you know, 20 days from the time they started practice till game time, and, you know, so they're really not a fundamentally sound team at this point.
Right.
You know, so this week will give them an opportunity to work on some of the fundamentals and maybe even put in a couple of new wrinkles in. And, you know, when you have 20 days, it's hard to put a lot of new stuff in.
Absolutely. And I think that at some point during this week, they'll all sit down and watch film and just, who knows, they may come in like early in the morning and watch film or something like that, just to see how Eider's looking and what they need to do to stop Townsend and Higdon.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the last game we'll talk about, the Collinsville Panthers, you know, they played Asbury. They won that game 55-0. Mason McKinney had another great night, a couple of touchdowns and interception, run back for a touchdown. And, of course, Caleb Jones continues to play well, had over 110 yards passing on the night and a couple of touchdowns. So, you know, getting ready. They got a big game this week with Cedar Bluff, but, you know, that's their second win in a row. So, you know, this young Collinsville team, who only has 4 seniors, seem to be gelling a little bit now.
Oh, absolutely. And having that second win in a row, that's really got their team morale back up and boosted some of that chemistry throughout that team. So I think that going into this game, they'll take what they learned from that Asbury game, which, I mean, Asbury's struggling a little bit. So, I mean, they may not have learned a whole lot, but, I mean, it was a good game for them to focus on them, so they could go into this week and try out new things.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I said that was our last game. We actually do have one other game we need to talk about. Fort Payne traveled over to Coleman, you know, and lost that game 20-16. Another tough loss. It was just a tough loss for Fort Payne. Had the injury bug on the night. You know, Penholster was hurt. Not sure. Haven't heard anything this week, but, you know, Roger Engel told us he may not be back for the rest of the year. And, man, what a huge loss that would be.
Oh, absolutely. That hurts him on both offense and even special teams, too, because he's ran, I think, 2 kickoffs back for touchdowns.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, Evan McPherson had a great night for him. He was, I think he was 3 for 4 in field goals and just barely missed a 54-yarder. And so, but, you know, they lose that game 20-16. And, of course, we don't talk a lot about referees here, but, you know, and those type things. But I know Roger felt like they might have got a little home cooking over in Coleman in that game in a couple of plays that penalties that really hurt, some pass interferences that hurt Fort Payne at the end of the game as they lost that game 20-16. You know, they actually will be traveling down to Etowah this week in another just a tough football game. You know, Etowah always is just very good. And so, you know, hopefully Fort Payne can get back on the winning track this week, and we'll see how that shakes out. But, man, it was a great week of football. You know, high school football, just some big games, and, you know, set up for some big matches this week. And, you know, so I think we're going to take a break right now. We're going to go to a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to start talking about next week's games and break those down. So we'll be right back with you in just a moment.
How do you show love? With the big things? The little things? The tough things? Your everything. Show them you care. Alpha Insurance.
Are you in the market for a new or used vehicle? At Donahue Chevrolet, we have over 400 vehicles priced to move. Our new Chevrolets are employee price, plus you keep all the rebates. That means savings as high as $10,000. From the moment you walk in the door until you drive off in your new vehicle, we guarantee a sales process that puts your needs first. And don't forget, our on-site GM certified technicians are always here to ensure there are many worry-free miles in your vehicle's future. Come by Donahue Chevrolet and expect more from your local Chevy dealer.
At First Southern State Bank in Rainsville, we excel within the walls of our bank and outside these walls too. We're actively working with area schools to improve classrooms and supporting area student athletes on fields and courts. We work and worship at most churches in the Rainsville community. We also work to enhance the lives of area seniors, thanking them for a lifetime of contributions. We're the bankers and corporate citizens at First Southern State Bank. True community banking.
Welcome back into the Pigskin Preview Show, and Will, now it's time. We're going to talk a little bit about this week's games, and man, I tell you what, there is some great football games this week. And you know, first one I've got on the list here is Plainview will be traveling down to Fife. You know, both teams, Plainview's 5-0, Fife is 4-0. Fife's ranked number 1 in 2A, and I think Plainview is ranked number 9 in 3A this week. And so, man, what a football game this is going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, then this is one of Plainview's toughest games this season because they've got we're looking ahead because we can do that, players
Right.
can't. But next week against a tough Sylvania team, that's another tough testament for them. And but I think that Plainview is going to have to pass the ball very well because not many teams can run on this Fife defense. And so I think that passing is going to be the key for Plainview.
Oh, absolutely. Looking at this game, Plainview has not beat Fife in 8 years. They've had a couple of close games, but this Fife team has pretty much dominated this series in the last few years. So, Plainview having the best team probably they've had in several years. A very balanced football team. You start looking, Clay Cooper has run the ball just outstanding. He had another, I think he had about 90 yards on the night against Geraldine. But, you talk about Bailey Dukes, runs the ball really well, can throw the ball. You got Cade Willingham at receiver. You got Chance Broyles at receiver. And then one that we don't talk a lot about on the receiver side, he gets a lot of talk about on defense is the Wooden. Man, he's a great target too.
Oh, absolutely. He sometimes he'll slip out into just in the middle of the field and nobody will cover him. And then, I hate to say he's a last resort for Bailey. But when you're a quarterback, you look downfield and then you start looking inwards a little bit, and especially with some of their plays. But sometimes it seems like Wooden's uncovered at times, and Bailey just hits him for about 6-yard pass.
Surprised me a little bit in the Plainview game. Bailey threw. I think he had completions to 6 or 7 different receivers. You talk about Zach Allen. He had a touchdown on the night. The Stevens boy, and I can't think his name right off, number 26. He had a touchdown on the night. So he's spreading the ball around. So one thing with this Fife defense, it's not, they can't just lock on one receiver.
Absolutely.
And so that's going to be I think that's a big key. Like you said, I think Plainview will have to throw the ball, and and then right on the other side, you look at Fife offensively. It starts with Seth Benefield at quarterback, and he's the key on that side of the ball, the way he runs that offense, and and then Peyton Anderson, man, he can carry the load. So Plainview is going to have to be. They're going to have to stay in position. This double wing offense or wing T offense, whatever you want to call it. If you have to play your position. It's so easy because they get to sending one player this way and one this way, and then the next thing the quarterback's running up the middle with it. So the thing that Plainview defensively to defense this Fife offense, they're gonna have to stay at home. I think.
Absolutely, and if they can get pressure in the backfield and see if they can get to Benefield or Anderson, or even I think Parker Broyles has started running the ball a little bit for Fife. So if they can get hits, some good hits in the backfield to make them stumble or something for only like 2 or 3 yards, that's going to be big.
Oh, absolutely. And then you speaking of Fife's defense, and you got Parker Broyles and that group, and they play well. They're just they're so disciplined the way they play, and one thing about Coach Paul Benefield, they go over this and over this and over this and over this, and they don't have to think about what they're doing. They just react, and so that's going to be big for Fife. Again, I think this is just going to be a phenomenal football game. Probably, and I may be speaking out of turn here, but I think this will be the closest Plainview Fife football game we've had in a long time.
I agree.
Next game we'll talk about, we've got Fort Payne traveling down to Etowah, and again, Fort Payne just takes a heartbreaking loss last week, and I know Roger Engel told us, beat up pretty good, and Penholster, who has pretty much carried the load for them this far, or has may be out for the season. I haven't heard anything for sure on that, but be traveling down to Etowah, and man, when you play Etowah, you got to be ready. It's going to be a tough football game for them. I think Fort Payne, they've got to get that loss out of their mind. You hope they don't start thinking about, oh no, here we go again like we did last year. So, what's your thoughts on this Fort Payne team as they travel to Etowah?
Well, I think that they're going to have to go into practice this week. Have in their mind that Penholster's not coming back.
Right.
Because they can't practice this week, leading all the way up to the game Friday, thinking, well, we may not have to do some of this stuff because Penholster's going to be back. I mean, they're going to have to go into practice like he is out for the rest of the season, which he may not be. We haven't heard. But if he is, they're going to have to go in with that mindset, thinking he's not here. We're going to have to step it up, and other players are going to have to come up and step it up and run the ball well.
Oh, absolutely. One thing that Fort Payne does have, Jay Tyler Ellis at quarterback, and he had a phenomenal game against Coleman. I think he passed for 150, 160 yards on the night, and and then they've got the Shattuck's kid who is in the backfield who can carry the load too, and so they've still got plenty of talent on that football team. But you just hope that getting a couple people hurt, that they don't let that get to in their heads and cause them to just start doubting if they can win or not. So that's going to be a great game, and we'll pick these games in a minute, but that one I think is going to be there's a lot of great football games this week, and I think that's one of them. Again, the next game we've got Crossville will be traveling up to Sylvania, and this is Sylvania's homecoming. And man, why they'd pick Crossville for homecoming, I don't know. But this is another one. Crossville setting at 4-0, Sylvania's setting at 4-0, and this is going to be a great football game.
Absolutely. I think that Blanton Jones and even Jay Luther are going to have to step it up, and if they can do that, then they'll give this Crossville team a chance to beat Sylvania. Oh,
absolutely. I think one thing Blanton Jones has just week after week he just plays phenomenal. Every week his name is in the tops for stats, and he continues to just play well. And then you got Jay Luther, and there's a lot of other kids on that team. We don't mention that. Then this whole Crossville team is playing well right now.
Absolutely.
You talk about Sylvania. The one thing that could hurt Sylvania this week is depends on how Chris Shavers is. He is, in the last 2 weeks, he's rushed for over 200 yards in both games, and he is a cog in that Sylvania team. Blake Spears has played well at quarterback again, and so I think Sylvania has got to be able to stop Blanton Jones in this football game.
I agree.
If they can't stop him and make him get the ball to somebody else. If they let him run with the football, it could be a long night for Sylvania. And then Crossville's defense, they're going to have their hands full. With Sylvania, they got Shavers at running back. They've got the Battles kid who is a great receiver. Of course, Blake Spears at quarterback. And so, Crossville's going to, again, kind of like with the Silk Plainview, they're going to have to play discipline on defense to be able to slow this Sylvania team down.
And they're going to have to step up and guard their receivers too, because, with Sylvania is about like how Plainview was with Geraldine last week. You never knew what they were going to do.
Right.
They could pass one player, turn around, and run it the next, and then you just never know what they're going to do.
Oh, absolutely. And that's going to be a great football game. And, man, I just wish that one of those was on Thursday night and one of them was on Friday night, because that's going to be great football in DeKalb County, and there's no excuse for it. Nobody sitting at home on Friday night this week. There's too many good football games going on to stay at home. So, and I know the county fair's going on, but if you got to go to the fair, go Thursday night or tonight or Saturday night or
tomorrow night for dollar night.
There you go. And don't miss these high school football games on Friday night, because it's going to be a great week. Collinsville, they'll be traveling over to Cedar Bluff this week, again setting with a 2-game winning streak, and just handled Asbury, which we felt like they would. Asbury is still building that program, but Collinsville, very young football team. And so I think, with these 2 wins, they have built some confidence. Even Ernie, Coach Willingham, as I guess I should call him, he has, he was excited about traveling. Cedar Bluff is a big rivalry for Collinsville.
Absolutely. Last week was a good opportunity for Collinsville to try out new things that they're going to put in for Cedar Bluff, because if I'm not mistaken, Cedar Bluff won last week.
Yeah, they beat Gaston 40-0.
So this Cedar Bluff team is not a bad team, and I think it'll be a good test for Collinsville this week.
Yeah, that's going to be a great football game, and I think this Collinsville team, being young, if they can get a lead early in that football game, and that'll build some confidence with those players, and they'll feel like they can win that game. So we'll see how that game goes. That's going to be a great game. Ider, they'll be traveling up to North Sand Mountain. Ider comes in after just again getting manhandled by 5-48-0. North Sand Mountain, they traveled over to I think
Sylvania.
so. Yeah, played at Sylvania. I'm sorry, and played well for the first half. Second half, I know they had some turnovers, and of course Sylvania created a lot of that. But this is going to be a great matchup. I think this is probably one of those better football games, and Ider needs that win. They've lost 2 in a row now. North Sand Mountain comes in. They've had a couple of big losses, but they're playing well. Landon Green again. Had a phenomenal night passing last week. Austin Hill had a great night receiving, and for North Sand Mountain, they've just got to continue doing that.
I agree. I think one big key for Ider to win this game is they're going to have to stop the pass game for North Sand Mountain, because North Sand Mountain has been known to pass the ball very well. And
absolutely.
They did last week against Sylvania, but then Brindley Mountain the week before, they passed the ball extremely well. And so I think that Ider's going to have to get pressure in the backfield and get some hits on the quarterback.
I think you're right. Looking at North Sun Mountain, and again, playing a pretty good defense last week in Sylvania, and the quarterback passed for 252 yards. So that says a lot about what he can do to be able to get 252 yards against a good Sylvania defense with some very talented defensive backs and a monster defensive line. So I think for Ider, the one thing I think that if Ider can control the line of scrimmage on offense, keep the ball, and do what they like to do, which is run the football, hard-nosed, run it down the field, eat the clock up, they might have a chance of winning this football game. Jacob Higdon, man, he's a great running back. The Townsend Chase, I don't know which one it is.
I think Logan. One of them. They both are outstanding players, but I think that Logan has been
the one
running
carrying
it, and then Chase is receiver.
Okay. Well, but I think Ider, if they can run the football, and if they can, and just pick up first downs, eat clock, I think they got a chance of beating this North Sand Mountain team. Keep the ball away from North Sand Mountain, because, like you said, they're very dangerous throwing the football, and Austin Hill, he can, once he gets it, and he can go with it. So, I think Ider has an opportunity to get a win this week, and we'll see how that shakes out. Geraldine playing homecoming for them. DAR traveling over. DAR I think is a 4A team, and so it's a non-region game for a lot of these schools this week. And so what's your thoughts? I know Geraldine is your team, and so what's your thoughts as this Geraldine team tries to shake off the loss to Plainview last week and get in the win column this week?
Well, I think that they're just going to have to get that Plainview game out of their mind. And not to say they played bad at all. Like we said, it was tied, and then about midway through the first quarter in this second half, they moved the ball very well. But I think that they're just going to have to completely block that out and just go into this game and work on them a little bit. Yeah,
I think if Geraldine can build off of last week's second half and dominate the line of scrimmage and kind of like we were talking about with Ider, and run the football and do what they do best and run in the football, eat clock, I think they can. I think they have an opportunity of beating this DAR team. I don't know a lot about DAR. I know they were in a very close game earlier in the season with North Jackson, and had an opportunity to pull that win off, and don't think they won the game. I can't remember now, but they're not a bad football team by any means. So, but I think this Geraldine team, they just need to continue to get the ball in David White's hands and let Willoughby keep the ball running, and then every once in a while pop a little pass out there or whatever. So we'll see how that shakes out. Pisgah travels over to Sand Rock this week. Pisgah had a big win at Brindley Mountain last week, and a good win for them after Plainview had beat them the week before. So, but man, tough game as they travel out to Sand Rock. Sand Rock had a big game last week, and I can't remember who they're playing. But they won pretty big, and so. But this Pisgah team, man, they're going to have their hands full this week against Sand Rock.
I agree. I think that they're going to have to, like with Plainview and Crossville even, they're going to have to stay at home, because like we talked about earlier, I think it was with the Ider Sand Rock game when we said that Sand Rock is going to run it to draw your secondary in, and then when they're in to where Sandrock wants them, they'll throw it right over them.
Oh, yeah. I think, looking at this Sandrock team, they have improved every week. They just continue. And probably right now, if you look at 2A Region 7, of course, 5 is, on top by, and probably a good bit ahead of everybody else. But, looking at second place right now, I think you'd have to put Sandrock in that position right now.
Absolutely.
They are playing well right now, and I hadn't looked down the schedule to see when they play 5, but if they continue to improve, they may can hang with 5 too. I don't know how that goes. Pisgah struggling a little bit. Have some the quarterback Wiesnan can throw the ball really well. Good, and so if Pisgah can get a lead early in this football game and play defense, they have an opportunity to beat Sandrock. But I think it's going to be tough. We've talked about it. When you travel out to Sandrock, man, it's hard to play out there.
Absolutely.
It's
I think too, if Houston Bell can have a big game for him, because he had a big game for him last week in that win over Brindley Mountain. I think if he can have another big game for him this week, that they could hang with him a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all of our high school games for this week. We're going to talk a little bit about college. We got about 15 so minutes left in the show, and we'll talk a little bit about the college games and break them down, and we'll come back after the break and we'll pick the games and see how it shakes out. But Ole Miss will be traveling to Alabama. Last week big build up as Alabama and Vandy met. Vandy had the #1 defense in about 4 or 5 different categories in the nation, and Vandy felt like they were at a point where they could play with Alabama.
Yeah,
well, that didn't last very long. Alabama wins that game 59-0, and I think I read where Vandy had 3 first downs in the football game, and one of those came by penalty. So Alabama basically dominated this football game with Vandy.
I know that especially I think it was last year, it may have been year before last, Ole Miss had been giving Alabama a tough game. I mean, Alabama would come out and win, but it seemed like to start the first half, you didn't really know who was going to win.
Oh, absolutely.
Both teams moved the ball very well, and I'm not sure if he's still there, but I remember Treadway for Ole Miss. He was a big receiver for him.
Ole Miss beat Alabama two times, not last year, but the 2 previous years. Alabama travels over to Ole Miss, and I had the opportunity to go to that game last year. And Ole Miss jumps out on them 21-0. Alabama battles back and goes back ahead and gets up 40-21 or something. Then Ole Miss comes back and has an opportunity into the game to win it. And so Alabama hung on and won that game. But another big game, of course. A new coach at Ole Miss this year, and they've got a little bit of trouble, probation. They don't know what's going to happen on that yet. They hadn't announced that, but I know that has affected them a little bit. But this will be another great football game as Ole Miss travels down to Alabama on Saturday night at I believe that's an 8:00 kickoff, and we'll see how that goes. But this Alabama team right now, they're playing well. Had 4 or 5 different running backs run the ball on Saturday, so it's going to be that should be a great football game, and we'll see how that shakes.
I believe for Alabama, all 5 of their starting linebackers are back now. I think a couple of them were hurt, and so they're all back.
Yeah,
now.
that'll be big on the defense too. They got their players back, and so just a big SEC game, and man, you need to win that football game. Auburn will be traveling to Mississippi State, and man, Auburn just put a whipping on Missouri last week. 51-14 maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe that was the final on that game, and Mississippi State took a good whipping against Georgia, 31-3, and I think this is probably going to be, looking down. There's a couple of good games there, but I think the Auburn Mississippi State game is probably one of the better games of the week.
I agree. I think that. Defensively, I've said this before, but defensively, Auburn is looking just as good as they have.
Oh, absolutely.
In the past years. Offense, struggling a little bit, but I think, and I know I've said this, it seems like every time we talk about Auburn, but Jason Stidham is going to have to step up in this game.
Oh, yeah. I think you're exactly right. Mississippi State, they struggled passing pass defense last week against Georgia. Georgia pretty much had their way on the pass defense. So if Auburn can throw the ball against Mississippi State, they've got a very good opportunity. Auburn, I know the one thing, they made some changes on the offensive line, and I thought the offensive line played much, much better last week. And, defensively, they've played good all year and have kept them in games they probably wouldn't have been in if it hadn't been for the defense.
I know the Clemson game for one.
Yeah. And so that's going to be a great football game. I think that is a 6 o'clock kickoff. I believe I looked at that right. That'll be a 6 o'clock kickoff on ESPN, and that's just going to be a great football game. Next one, Georgia will be traveling up to Tennessee. Georgia again, they had a great football game against Mississippi State. A lot of people felt like Mississippi State could handle Georgia this year, but I tell you what, Georgia put it on them. Chubbs, was injured 2 years ago and struggled a little bit last year. It seemed like he just couldn't get back in the swing of things. But this year, man, he had a phenomenal game against Mississippi State.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that if he continues to play well, then Tennessee won't be able to hang with Georgia. I mean, Georgia's playing good football anyway, but then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they've been climbing the ranks here lately. But I think that if Nick Chubb can have another good game for him, then.
Yeah, and their freshman quarterback could come in this year and replace the starter who was hurt, and Frome, I believe is his last name, and man, he has played phenomenal as a freshman, and I don't look for. I heard him a little discussion this week about if their starting quarterback was better this week, would he start? Most people feel like Frome has probably won that position right now. So, for Tennessee, Tennessee's struggling. They struggled with UMass last week. Won that game 17-14. And I know Tennessee fans are not happy listening to the radio and different shows. And, most people are calling for Butch Jones's head at this point of the season. And, if they can't play with this Georgia team, it could get ugly in Tennessee over the next couple of weeks. So we'll see how that shakes out. But this Tennessee team is struggling defensively, offensively, and I think that'll be a tough game for them. Clemson, and this is another great football game, man. There's all kinds of good football games this week. Clemson be traveling to Virginia Tech. Clemson struggled at Boston College last week.
I believe
that game was tied up at one point. I guess at halftime, I think.
Well, I think it was even tied going in the fourth quarter at 7.
Yeah, so, but Clemson pulled that game out in the fourth quarter, and if you looked at the score, you'd think that they blew them out, but it was probably not quite as that game was a lot closer for 3.5 or 3 quarters than most people think. Virginia Tech is playing well and got a great quarterback, and so this is going to be a good football game. Very good test for Clemson.
I agree.
I think Virginia Tech offensively probably is better than where Auburn was at when they played Clemson. So the Auburn's defense played phenomenal against Clemson.
I agree. I think that really, and I know his name isn't really mentioned a lot, but I think that Hunter Renfrow, if he could step up and lead this Clemson team a little bit, and especially the offense, then they could win this football game, because I know that Renfrow is one of, I don't remember Clemson's quarterback's name, but I know Bryant. Yeah. Renfrow is one of his big targets.
Oh, man. And I'm sure if you asked Alabama, they know the Renfrow name because he beat them pretty much on his own last year in the national championship game. So that's going to be a phenomenal football game, and, I'm looking forward to watching that football game too. And then the last one we want to talk about before we go to break, we got JSU. They'll be traveling up to Tennessee Tech, and I'm telling you, this JSU team is loaded with talent. They gave Georgia Tech all they wanted. Score-wise, you'd think it probably wasn't that close, but JSU has got a good football team.
Absolutely. I don't remember his first name, but the Lee guy on the offensive line, I believe he's...
Yeah, from Ider.
Yeah. I believe he's tackle, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And then they've got Rock Thomas running behind him.
Absolutely.
So, those two guys right there, Lee out front blocking, and then Thomas he's just outstanding in the backfield anyway. He can break tackles. You wouldn't think he could.
Rock Thomas, of course, transferred from Auburn and actually was starting at Auburn at one point. And so, this Jacksonville State team's got a great football team. And I haven't looked at the rankings, but 2 weeks ago, Jacksonville State was ranked #1 in the nation in their division. Yeah. So, and I hadn't had an opportunity to keep up with them much in the last couple of weeks, but that's going to be a great football game too. So, but we're up against a break now. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, it's going to be that time of the week we get to pick them, and so we're going to go to a break, and we'll be right back with you in just a moment.
Hello folks, this is Andy White down here at Bobby Ledbetter's Twin City in Fort Payne, Alabama. I want to invite everybody to come out to our new location. We're at 1411 Glen Boulevard, right where you turn to go on Airport Road. We've got plenty of inventory for you to choose from. I got cars, trucks, vans, sport utility vehicles of any make and model. Come down here and visit us. Let us see what we can do for you. If you got some slow credit, I've got some banks that'll take care of that. We've got great financing, got a great selection of cars. Y'all come down here and see us.
Don't take the first deal that comes along when you can do better at BobbyLedbetter.com and Twin City Used Car Sales, located at 1411 Glen Boulevard in South Fort Payne.
Building your dream home is one of the great joys in life. At First Southern State Bank, we know construction and mortgage financing, putting today's low rates to work for you. As you and your family move closer to the completion of your new home, we know that your home is where memories are made and families grow stronger year after year. At First Southern State Bank in Rainsville, Scott Kirk stands ready to tailor the right construction loans to meet your needs, along with our staff of experienced loan professionals. Drop by to share your dreams with us today in Rainsville. First Southern State Bank in Rainsville, all the bank you'll ever need.
College is more than an education. It's a bridge to your future. Plan your future. Envision your future. Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Welcome back into the Pigskin Preview Show, and now it's that time. This is the fun time of the day for me. We get to pick the games, and I noticed, last week, Big Don Fabus, I believe, he went 12-0. So congratulations to him on going 12-0 last week. Bum, I think, missed one game, if I'm not mistaken. I think
I missed two.
You missed two. I missed two. Margie, I think, may just miss one, I believe. And so, we're all right there together. And, at some point, somebody's going to have to jump a lead. I noticed that Bum said this was his week. Last week he said, I'm getting right there. And then he did, which he did. He's one game out right now. And he said this was his week to take the lead. So we'll see how that goes. But, first game we've got on the list, man. And I tell you what. Let's skip that one for right now. What do you think about that?
All right, let's skip that one.
Let's skip that one in the Crossville. Yeah, we'll do those last. So, first one we're going to talk about, Fort Payne travels down to Etowah. What do you think about this game and who you picking?
I'm going to go with Fort Payne. I think that going into this week, I think that Coach Ellis, he's going to do a great job of preparing them for this team and helping them out with executing plays without Penholster. I think that he's got in his mind that he's got to keep these guys focused and make sure that whoever Penholster's backup is, that he knows what he's doing and how to do and how to execute on all the plays.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, this is a tough ball game for me to pick. I'm going with Etowah, and for the mere reason there's two reasons I'm going. They're playing at home, which I think Etowah always plays good at home. And the other thing is, I'm not sure if Penholster is not able to play, what kind of win that might take out of Fort Payne, because they count on that kid for a lot. He does a lot for the Fort Payne football team, and I just feel like the Etowah may catch them at a good time with some injuries, and so I'm going with the Etowah Blue Devils. Next game we'll go with Collinsville travels over to Cedar Bluff, and so what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think that I'm going with Cedar Bluff. I think that them having and Collinsville's young. Don't get me wrong, they're starting to get together. But I think that Cedar Bluff has got a lot more seniors and a lot more experience in games like this. So that's why I think Cedar Bluff's going to come out on top.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm going with Cedar Bluff too. I think they do have a senior, a lot of seniors on that football team. They are playing well. It is at home. Collinsville's very young, and if Cedar Bluff gets a lead on them, I'm afraid Collinsville it may be hard for them to come back in that football game. So I'm going with Cedar Bluff. I think that's going to be but I think that will be a close football game, and I hope I'm wrong on that. I hope I'm wrong on two of those. I hope Fort Payne beats Etowah, and I sure hope that Collinsville can beat Cedar Bluff. And I think that's two tough games for both of those teams. Next, we got Ider traveling over to North Sand Mountain. Who you got in this one?
I'm going with North Sand Mountain, not only because of the fact that it's at North Sand Mountain, but I just don't believe that Ider can stop North Sand Mountain's pass game. I mean, like we said earlier, you look at the stats, and North Sand Mountain's quarterback had 272 yards against a good Sylvania defense. And I mean, North Sand Mountain even played that first half well, and against Sylvania, and it was tied at halftime at 13. And well, I mean, we always talk about how good Sylvania is, so I think that North Sand Mountain is going to build off of that. Even though they did lose, I think they are going to build off of that game and take it into this week.
I think you're exactly right. I'm going with North Sand Mountain, like you said. Pass-wise, they're just Landon Green is playing phenomenal, and Austin Hill is playing really good. And defensively, they struggled a little bit, but the poor kid at linebacker is great athlete, and they got a couple other good athletes on there. The Marlboro kid is playing well. So I feel like this will be a close football game, but I think North Sand Mountain wins this football game on Friday night. Next one we got DAR traveling to Geraldine. Geraldine's homecoming. A lot of activities going on. So who you got in this one?
I'm going with Geraldine. I mean, not only because that's my team, but I think that and plus with it being homecoming, it seems like whenever a team has a homecoming game, the players play differently.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially with a lot of these seniors on this Geraldine team, they're going to say, well, this is my last homecoming. I'm not going out without a win. So I think that whole mindset of a lot of those seniors is going to filter down to these younger guys, and that's going to help them win this football game.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've struggled with this one. I think Geraldine, and I think it's going to be a great football game. I picked DAR in the paper, and the more I think about it, the more I want to pick Geraldine. But I'm going to stick with my guns because I picked them in the paper, and I don't want to change it now. Mm-hmm. But so I'm going to go with DAR. I maybe. I don't know. It's just a gut feel. Mm-hmm. I hope Geraldine proves me wrong in that one, but I'm picking DAR in that game. Next, we got Pisgah at Sandrock. Who you got?
I'm going with Sandrock because not only is it at Sandrock, but Pisgah has been struggling a little bit, and I feel like Pisgah is going to fall victim to that Sandrock run, draw you in, throw it over you, and score.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen. I want Pisgah to prove me wrong, but I just don't think that they will.
Yeah. I'm going with Sandrock too. I think this Sandrock team, the more I watch them, hear about how they play, and read about them, they've got a pretty good football team, and so I think Sandrock could just be a little too much at home for Pisgah. So I'm going with Sandrock. All right, let's jump back up now. We got Crossville travels up to Sylvania in just a huge football game. Sylvania's homecoming, and Crossville playing well. Sylvania playing well. Something's got to give this week. So what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I picked Sylvania, and I'll tell you why I did. And I'm not taking anything away from Crossville, but last week they played a struggling Douglas team. The week before, a struggling Scottsboro team. The week before, the week before last week was Arab.
Yeah.
Arab struggling a little bit. Scottsboro struggling a little bit. Collinsville, that was their first ball game, and Collinsville was young, and so I feel like Crossville took advantage of that. And I mean, you look at who Sylvania's played. They beat Colbert County. They beat a decent North Sand Mountain team.
Yeah.
And so I think that just because of the fact that Sylvania has played a lot tougher opponents, I think that Sylvania is going to win this game. But if Blanton Jones and Jay Luther can have a big game, that will help Crossville.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, this is one of those that it was hard for me to pick. Sylvania, man, playing well. Coach Putnam has done such a fantastic job with that program, and just a great offensive line, great defensive line, running backs, and Crossville on the other hand, Blanton Jones has just played outstanding, and all year long, big opportunity for Crossville to make a statement this week, and I don't know the situation with Shavers at running back this week. This was a gut feel pick, but I'm going with the Crossville Lions. Just a gut feel. Plus, I've got 2 kids who teach there, and they would both be giving me down the road if I didn't pick them. So I'm going with Crossville. And then our last high school game we want to talk about, we got Plainview traveling down to Fife. And, man, what a football game I think this will be. But what's your thoughts?
I think that Fife is going to win it, but not by much. I do think that this game will be tied going all the way down to even late in the fourth quarter, and Fife has got a lot more experience with games like that. I mean, I know Plainview's been in a couple of games like that this year, but I think Fife comes out on top, not by much.
Yeah, man, this one's tough on me. I'm picking Plainview, and I'll tell you why I'm picking Plainview. I think it's been 8 years. We've got some talent on our football team, probably the best talent that Plainview has had in a long time. And so, Fife, very talented. Not sure they're as talented as they were last year, but, they're a very talented football team. I feel like if Plainview can get them to the fourth quarter, that'll give them some confidence. Hey, we can play with this bunch. And so I'm picking Plainview in an upset this week. All right, I know we just got a couple of minutes left, and we're going to have to go quick here. But we got Ole Miss traveling to Alabama. Who you got?
I've got Alabama. I just think that Ole Miss having a new coach in this year, I think that's really going to take a big toll on them. With Alabama's going to take advantage of that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going with Alabama. I think it'll be a big game for them. Auburn travels to Mississippi State. Who you got?
I'm going with Auburn. I know I say this every time, but I'm just really hoping this game is the one where Stidham steps up and has a big one.
Yeah. Boy, I struggle with this, and Auburn's defense is so good. Mississippi State has a phenomenal quarterback. Defensive, they did not play good against Georgia, but, I watched them play LSU. They played really good at home, and this is going to be another one of those upsets. I'm going with Mississippi State in the upset over Auburn. Got Georgia at Tennessee. Who you picking? I'm
picking Georgia. They played outstanding football these past couple of weeks, and Tennessee is kind of struggling this year. I mean, they've hung with Florida and lost that game on a Hail Mary at the end, but I just think that Georgia is going to have their way with them.
I think you're right. I'm going with Georgia. I think with this Tennessee team, man, I hate to say this, but if Tennessee don't get it in gear, there could be some changes in Tennessee. So I'm picking Georgia. Clemson at Virginia Tech.
I'm going with Clemson. I feel like, and I'm not saying last week was a fluke. I mean, everybody has a bad game, but I just think that Clemson is going to. I think Dabo's going to really get in their mind, drill in their mind that they need to just completely forget about how bad last week was and going to this week, starting new.
Yeah, I think Clemson wins this football game. I think if you look at last week, they probably were looking ahead to this game probably a little bit, and I think you'll see a different Clemson team this week. So I'm going with Clemson. And then we've got JSU traveling up to Tennessee Tech. Who are you picking?
I'm picking JSU. I like the way they've been playing, and I've had a lot of people here lately, and I thought they were crazy. So I'd rather go watch Jacksonville play than Alabama at this point.
Hey, I tell you, this Jacksonville team is very good. I'm picking Jacksonville State too, and I'm very impressed with how that program is going down there, and the coach has done a phenomenal job. And I look for Jacksonville State to be making some noise at the end of the season, maybe getting back to that national championship game again. So, man, it's been a great week. Some great football games coming up this week, and man, I tell you what, if you've ever wanted to go out and watch football, this is the weekend to do it. I mean, there's some great high school football games, and they don't get much better than these, I'm telling
absolutely.
you. So, man, we appreciate y'all tuning in this week, and again, hope you get to go out and watch some great high school football. God bless each one of you, and man, we'll see you back here next week for some more good high school.
Listen to some of Johnson's satisfied customers.
Everything exceeded our expectations. No one will ever work here other than Johnson. We give them an A+. The crew was awesome.
This is the third company that installed a unit in my house and the first that did it right.
Don't you want to know what type of person is working at your home? All of our employees must pass a background check and are subject to random drug testing. We won't send anyone to your home that we wouldn't trust in ours.
Call Johnson Heating and Cooling today, Alabama's largest and most awarded TVA dealer.
Hello folks, this is Greg Anthony with Team 1 Chevrolet in Gadsden, Alabama, bringing you an event that other dealers say can't be done. They don't know Team 1 Chevrolet in Gadsden, Alabama like I do. We're racing to sell 200 new and used automobiles for the month of September during our inventory wipeout event. This event is so big, Etowah County has not seen anything like this in years. Come and be part of the biggest event ever. It is Team 1 Chevrolet in Gadsden, Alabama. Inventory wipeout, racing to 200. I'll see you soon.